All right, it is June 21, 2023 on the front line of the apocalypse. It is a Wednesday here in the United States. It's already Thursday in the Southern Hemisphere. We've got a person that's been on quite a bit over the years and hoping that we can develop a more frequent relationship because of the things that the network is about to get into. You learn, you move on. We figured out our strength over the years has been to bring people together in content. And so we're going to very quickly be coming out with content 24 hours a day, and you will be able to access it from a handheld, from an app.
I love it.
We're looking for people that want to develop their own programming, original programming on the site, and we have a process kind of set up to where we cut excerpts every day, and we'll be putting them out into the old Solstice or the mainstream Solstice platforms, the 5 platforms, and then just building the other stuff that we've talked about as well. So, people like you, I think, and now you're kind of the exception, Valerie. If you look at the communities, and this is something that I think will change, certainly will be represented on the network. The communities, 80-20 female to male, we know that. If you look at the Solstice network, it's probably anywhere from 70 to 85% are women that are 40 years and over that are kind of tech challenged, based on demographics, and not that the men 40 and over aren't. But what I'm saying is that that's who makes up these communities, and Solstice network reflects that. So you got an 80-20 in terms of how it's populated, but in terms of who's putting out videos over the years, it's the other way. So it's time for these physical representations of the energy that's rising, because it's rising in all of us. It's coming out in me. I know people can see it, and other men, and so I'm hoping that we can create a more frequent collaboration, or encourage you to do something along those lines. For those of you who don't know, Valerie, by the way, Valerie, I'll give you a full-length MP4, editable MP4 that you can then share on social media as you wish.
Oh, beautiful.
Every one of our guests gets that. As they share with us, we share with them. So
I love it.
There are, Sandra Walter was on about 10 days ago. And I told her that, she's been one of the, I guess you would say baseline energy readers, or what do you call it? Reading things. I don't know if you really call it prophecy, but
intuitive oracle. We use oracle a lot. A lot of oracle.
These labels and names. But and I was telling her, and there's a lot of you out there. There's a lot of them. And they all have kind of their own thing, right? Some specificities here and there, like I think one of yours is sacred union, sacred sexuality, but many other things, because I watch this. And I've always over the years tried to share this stuff on this, what was initially the Solstice group, and still do. So I share your stuff, probably weekly.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. But what I was telling her is that a lot of this intel is starting to come together. And the nomenclature and the specificities of their purposes and what they had to say is all coming together. So one of the reasons that I mentioned that to her is because a lot of what she talks about, like, again, is kind of a baseline for everybody. Now your stuff always seems to be very, very near future and present, right? And the other thing I like about it too, and I look at like Franco. Franco's stuff was always on point, and now his stuff went out further and further and further, like some people do. One of the things that I loved about what he did, and we did 52 shows together, that is from the first one to the last one. From the first one to the last one.
Franco.
Right on. I remember him talking like terms like 2035 in the beginning. But he would always say, it's always subject to change. We're constantly changing.
Yes,
like I remember talking to him about the election in 2016. He said, no, I'm sorry, 2020 election. I remember him saying 10 days before the election. I said, well, you know what's going to happen? And he said, no, we still haven't decided. We being all of us haven't decided.
Yeah, the collective.
You know what I mean?
Decides.
So where I want to go with that is that today, and more than ever, the present is speaking to us. It doesn't matter what happened right up until last night when I went to bed.
Yes.
Because it's new information. It's a wider field of consciousness. It's a wider field of awareness, wider field of intelligence, a greater understanding and clarity and cohesiveness to our channel conduit self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got up today, I saw where you said that whatever you said, you can go into it, but that in
what
essence,
did I say?
Well, the end of it was 2024, feeling 2024 energies. Now,
yes.
I'll hand this over to you. Just a little setup.
Timeline.
I'm not in a rush. One thing I've figured out is if we don't get it right here, right now, we're not getting it anywhere. It ain't about where we're going. There's some kind of evolution. That's natural. I get that. And I don't want to get stuck because we're not linear anymore. But that still numbers speak 2024, Franco's intel, many other people's intel. We hit January 2024. It's a whole different world by far. Everybody knows it, but we still got to get from here to there. So today's solstice. What the hell's going on? I haven't had any radiation burn in about 3 or 4 weeks. But I really removed sugar from my life, and I think that had something to do with it. But I did get some in the last 2 days, and I know the energy's high, and I don't follow all the things that you do, and I don't understand everything. I'm getting better. But can you just tell us what's going on, how you're getting, what's going on, what information that you come into, personal intel, et cetera, that get you to this point, and, what can you tell us about what's coming?
Okay, well, thank you. That's a lot of questions. First of all, thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. I can't see questions, so this is
if any questions come up, I'll
oh, okay, you can see them, but I can't. Okay, perfect. So those are all really good points, and I just want to mention because it's very much a hot topic still, is the Schumann and what happened a couple days ago with a very different pattern. And, people are still going back and forth about what actually happened. So I love it. I love when we get these kind of big, aha, physical, visual, tangible situations, because it allows everybody to reevaluate, to understand. We're receiving the data. We know what's going on. So anything that's external to us, right, is either a confirmation or it's a challenge to allow us to look deeper, look in a different place. So, as oracles, channels, whatever you want to call us, we all receive slightly different information, basically because we're tuning into, those aspects of ourselves. I've talked probably before about aspects. And as a soul, we have access to so many different pieces, whatever you call them, soul remembrances, the Akashic records, that database of information. So for me, this, goes back to 2012. This goes back to that timeline when everybody had that awakening, including myself. So at that time, that was a 7-year cycle, what I was, told, that would end in 2019. And we know what happened in 2020. So I work a lot with timelines, which are just groups of information. And so, like Franco, and I'll say I'm from a future timeline, many of us, if you think of past, present, and future all happening now, right? Like you were saying, we're not in a linear time space anymore. So we can access really any timeline. And that's when we come into the collective. What do we want to see? What are we willing to hold? Because all of this comes down to the collective consciousness and what vibration we want to, maintain. That's really what it comes down to. So, so now to my post. Overnight integration of light years of data. Yesterday afternoon, I was completely taken out. I couldn't move. I was laying on I have a biomat and could not move. And I felt a lot of different pieces of data, perhaps that were held, in these plasma fields, because we've been getting bombarded, as you know, for many months now. And
Right.
so that has an effect on the physical body, and it allows us to take in more light. This is really all about how much light can we hold in our physical vessel. And that has been what this, process is about, because we are not only as a species, ascending, but as we know, Gaia, our planet, our home, is also ascending, as well as the galaxy. I was going to talk about galaxy stuff yesterday. Might not be ready.
Oh, I think we're ready.
Are we ready to talk about galaxy stuff?
The first time Franco came on, came on,
Yeah.
and we started talking, and I said, he said, well, we can't, I can't talk. I said, wait a minute, this is Solstice. You can talk about whatever you want. He goes, really? So that's how that all started. Yeah, I think this is the time to rip the Band-Aids off. I think it's
totally.
the time, I mean, to share whatever we have, because, the amazing thing is, and I think we all know this. I mean, this thing is kind of like, there's kind of an automatic pilot thing happening here. And where we talk about, this is coming, or whatever the way people, kind of express their experiences. I just keep going back to, we're feeling the alignment. It's alignment, it's a natural kind of coming together. And a lot of the judgments falling away, a lot of the human programs are becoming diminished and depleting, are depleting us less, because they're less of a factor, because there's more epiphanies through these sharings. You guys carry frequencies, even when you, just by showing up and expressing what you do share, because we're picking it up like tuning forks. And I think this is happening to everybody,
exactly.
So
yes.
I encourage you to speak openly. You do what you want, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Well, not that I'm not, it's not about not wanting to share, just timing. For me, it's that alignment of, what's coming in. And also, that's a whole different conversation, because we're an important planet, of course, in the Milky Way galaxy. So on a galactic level, because a lot of the galactic energies have been coming in, it just the cosmic frequencies, we're part of this galaxy, and we have a sister galaxy, Andromeda. And so many of us tune into some of those higher frequencies, and just nothing's really changed. The goal and the purpose hasn't changed since 2012. Even before that, some of the older, the ancestral pieces, even from 1987, the cosmic convergence. So these are those openings and those timelines, which we're still in. And 2024 was and is a timeline that I was told that we would be fully grounded in these 5D frequencies, everything that's coming in. Now, collectively speaking, we have risen the bar. And I'm going to say that Schumann reading was a representation of our 3D. So if you think about the third dimensional frequency, the baseline of that rose. That's what I felt. That was very important, even if it was a 24-hour period. It just tells us, those readings let us know that we are running an organic grid. We're running on an organic intelligence, which we are very much a part of. And as you said earlier, it has been a lot about, remembering, but also updating these avatar bodies. I talk a lot about the avatar on the 12D avatar, which has been a grounded, energetic that we're able to access. And this has probably been about a year since I felt that we're finally able to open to those energies, because most human race has been operating on a 10D system, which is that closed loop system, not allowing for the cosmic or galactic consciousness, right, to stream through, to have access to that. So that is a lot of our return to this galactic society. rather than just, the third dimensional, see, language comes in. So it's a merging, it's a coming together and an acknowledgement of our galactic, of our return to galactic humans, where we have a full-on, integration, not only with Gaia, because she's going through a change, but also with our galactic. So that really has been the mission project. A collective ascension, right? Because, for me, do we have peace on the planet? That for me is the goal. That is my goal. Peace here on Earth. It's been something that's been we've had moments, I think, in some of
When do we
our
have moments?
I would say our ancient societies, if you look at, Lemuria, Atlantis, I mean, they're,
well, I mean,
those for me, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is I mean, for me, nothing's off limits. And I mean, I say that because of the level of evolution that we've hit.
Yes.
Where you can take this here and with with AI out there, and if you just have any eye whatsoever, it's getting harder and harder from the human perspective. Remember what I said, the human perspective only, I guess you could say, the standalone, assessing things, comprehending things from the 3D paradigm. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's fake and what's real. So if I look at, all the information that people like you bring in for us, and, my own, information, which I think for all of us is probably the most important thing. We talk about Atlantis. I remember Atlantis. I remember the day it went down. I remember Lemuria. I remember the day the Anunnaki came in. I remember the great divide that occurred, the great rift that occurred between my partner at that time, and the story still goes on. But my point is that in each one of these levels, we self-destructed. And so, even if you look in our recent past, you look at the Native Americans, which I have, strong recollection of my lives there. We were cannibals. We were warlike. We killed babies. We killed women and the ethnic cleansing. It goes on and on and on all around. So it's like this big program that we can't leave anything left unchallenged. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, why is all the giant information and Atlantis information and secret space and all this stuff coming out now, right? I look at that, and then I look at, well, you know what? All of this is us. All these memories that came in, the Galactic. I mean, they took me to Lyra a couple of weeks ago, and then I went through this whole tangent, and I thought, we're the highest opportunity right now. We're the highest potential. And the sky's the limit, and I was so, like, when you say that, I totally resonate with, I want to see peace in the world. I think mine would stop at peace. I am peace. I want to see peace, what that looks like as the days go by, how things happen as they goes by. I have no idea. Like, I think we will all see something, no matter who we are, that we never would have thought of. Like, I mean, this is maybe more than one thing. I don't know.
And that's a frequency, and those are great points, Todd. I mean, back in 2012, when I had this greater awakening, I've talked about that before. It was, you're an ambassador of peace for the Pleiades. I'm like, what? And so Atlantis showed up, my Atlantean remembrance, and these Pleiadians showed up at the same time. So it was like both of these databases, right? I had the Earth piece, and then I had the Galactic piece. Both showed up. And what I was told is, I'm an ambassador for the Pleiades. That's what I'm doing here. And in these bodies, we of course are enacting, remembering, recoding, whatever you want to call it, which has been the process for me anyway, since 2012, of remembering all of these different aspects.
Right.
And the couples, the whole twin, all of the divine unions, all of that. The important part there, because there's been so many stories and a lot of trauma and attachment, but the important part is we come together for important earth work, whatever that is.
Right.
The human attachment to the relationship is where we've been stuck, and these are the emotional 4D emotional issues, interpretation, right? Because we're interpreting based on not only our own personal upbringing, but the collective, the 3D collective, and how we've moved into, limiting relationships, limiting societal pieces. And if you look around, a lot of times we're operating in a very old timeline. For me, it's the 50s that we got stuck in the 50s.
We had separate beds.
It's separate beds. Like, what the hell is this? Like, where did this come from?
That's some programming though, man. I mean, I'm a little older, but I remember that stuff. The TV shows. You bring up but you really bring up a great point. And I just want to interject one quick thing.
Yeah.
Having some experience. These relationships, these connections, they're real. They're fucking real. And I know people that are in these relationships that the partner's not incarnated.
Yeah.
I know many different scenarios, and I guess we all, are privy to that. But my point is, it's not romantic. It's not romantic in terms of what we thought in our limited understanding romance was. I mean, romance is a 3D word, but there is a deep soul connection that can't be denied. And I think that's what all of us as individuals, whether we're I think any connection is that connection, be it for a moment, be it for whatever. But I'm just saying that it speaks louder than the human will. Yeah. At some point, sooner or later, and that's really speaking to a lot more than just sacred union frequency, but also Christ consciousness, divine feminine, divine masculine, and so on.
Exactly. And it's a return to that sacredness. And for me, we're also, it's important about choice. Whatever kind of relationship you want to have should be honored and respected, because there is so much judgment. Yeah. And that has been most of the unraveling, our own programming, right, in this limited 3D construct that we were, directed into. And yes, religion has been a big part of that, as we know. And this is the control piece. So any abuse of power, which, I'm not saying Atlantis was all rosy, but there were some elements that were quite powerful.
Absolutely.
Along with Lemuria, but with any physical incarnated species, they're the survival pieces, which has been most of, I would say, at least the last couple thousand years, which I felt was like sloughed off a few months ago. Like we loofed it off, because there's enough of us collectively holding the field. And that's important. And that's the temperature that I take, is where is the collective? What are we seeing? How are people responding when there is a crisis on the planet? Right. What is the response? Right? Are we really tuned in to, let's take care of our own species? I mean, we must be the only species that, we're supposed to be one species here. We're supposed to be operating together, like many of the species do. And that really has been the biggest part, because we've had to go into the mind mapping.
Right.
I mentioned body mind mapping this morning, because that's a very important piece of an advanced society. Right? You talked about the phone. The phone, this is just an interim device. We don't really need this because we have telepathic communication, which Atlantis, I would say, was pretty advanced there. And probably probably the most advanced society that we've had in the physical, right? Because Lemuria was not fully incarnated. There was only about 30-40% in a body. The rest was in another, they were in other dimensions. So when I look at Lemuria, for me, that's the heart, it's the mother.
Right.
And that's a lot of the grid that I've worked in Hawaii
Yeah.
that's the Lemurian grid. And I live in Redondo. This is Lemuria.
Right.
I can feel the energy. So there's no accident where you're born. I was born in Orange County. I was born in California. So I have a connection here. And a lot of people are moving. So we're in a big shift, as we've had before, of physically where you're being located on the grid. So all of these pieces bring into, the consciousness, where are you individually, and then again, the collective. So it's that collective temperature that's very important. And we get to hit that mass, whatever that word is, where there's enough of us to shift the rest, which is happening. He said it, it's happening right now. So for me, the Schumann, that reading, people say it was a glitch. There's all sorts of, theories, but we know in our heart, and we felt it. I felt what was happening is that we have a different, more organic, I mentioned organic intelligence, because Gaia is an intelligent, energy of this planet. And the more you tune in with her, the more you tune in with that field, the more you're able to run that organic intelligence.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I feel you're absolutely right. Anything that we're shown, we have to consider why the hell, it's kind of like once a liar, why always a liar. So if we're being subliminally programmed with TV programming from the 50s, I think that was a great point on many ways, post World War II, because that's really when the last wave of you would say it was it's the last effort. It's not 2020. It's this started right after or during World War II. So if you watch the whole narrative of what's really occurred and who's pulling the strings today. I find it quite interesting. But going back to what you said, to give you some props, because energy is energy. It's going to show itself however the fuck it wants to.
Yeah.
And so there might be an ill intention or a propaganda oriented thing on anything that's projected and put before us. I laugh a lot because people go, NASA said this. And I'm like, okay. So I'm not that I won't look at it, but the point is we know the game here. So what you feel inside of yourself is really what's speaking and what's altering this world. Valerie lives in California and Todd lives in the Gulf Coast of Texas, and same type of thing. Why am I here? And so lives there, and so lives there. But what are they all doing with this information and coding? They've been, and I think I was going to ask you, what is mind body mapping? And this is a perfect segue, but I guess that's ultimately what we've done in terms of what we call shadow work, zero pointing, reconfiguring our DNA, growing up, coming clean, whatever you want to call it.
Owning your shit.
Owning your shit. Right. Exactly. That ought to be what the Bible says. It just says those words, owning your shit. End of story. But just on that, what is mind body mapping, if I'm missing anything?
So for me, it's connecting those data points, right? So when you think of what's coming into the energetic body, it has to then connect into the physical body. And, most people know about the energetic system of the body and the different layers. And so as we've expanded our awareness, expanded our light body, we're able to bring in and then actually anchor into the physical body. So for me, that's the mapping, is when you're opening in the physical body what's coming through the cosmic consciousness, the galactic coding. And a lot of people mentioned, that what we saw in the Schumann is galactic. Those were frequencies, those were signs and signals from our galactic family. And so it's how we're integrating, anchoring into the body, because that's what it's been about, and I've said this before, we are the walking ley lines. It's not just the powerful spots on the planet, it's us. We're holding so much within us. And so as we activate, we unfold those different databases, timelines, whatever you want to call it. When I'm called to a physical spot on the planet, when I go there, everything that I've experienced and unlocked, unfolded, I unfold wherever I am,
Right.
and usually it's a place I've been before. There's a
Exactly.
remembrance.
Yeah.
I remember going to New Mexico and the land was like, welcome back. And I'm like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing. If I look back at the last 10 years, I mean, just the places that, that's held true, like, Sedona, Kauai. I mean, the
yeah,
Lemuria
yep. Lemuria.
memories there were just,
Yes.
I mean, so many things there, really. I mean, it was like a interdimensional highway, and so is
Yeah.
Sedona. But I
Yes.
find it interesting that coming back to Houston,
Right.
unplanned, and so on.
Yeah.
12 years to the day, like for me, 2012 when it started, or 2011 really. But yeah, I see all these cycles completing,
Yes.
and it's like nothing is everything, you never lose, and
Exactly.
it's like, I don't know, I feel like, because if I reflect on, I would have to say, like, my strongest memory on the earth, right, would be Lemuria and Atlantis, in terms
Yes.
of past lives, in terms of something
Uh-huh.
significant, in terms of the discussion.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, now in Lemuria, to me, it was simply kind of like birthing, and it was like Eden-esque.
Yes.
It was
Hmm.
matriarchal for me. My
Yes.
experience was, and it was, the men were revered, but it was just a different type of set, and very Pleiadian, I would say.
Very Pleiadian. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so then the fuckery began, right? So that was a total, so I can't really say what was our trajectory. It was more like life, like nature, like probably like the original Eden type of
Yes.
uh, idea, was just to be in peace and harmony in a very,
Yeah.
a very physical world with beautiful animals and plants and da, da, da. Now Atlantis feel to me feels very much like you said. There was a level of
Heck.
intelligence. I remember very clearly being
Yeah.
in a room with my friends, and this incredible universal tone, and
Yes.
and and we didn't say anything, and you could see the pixels in the air. I remember this very clearly, and I also
Oh,
remember the crystal holders. I remember the
yes.
technology, and I remember it getting out of whack. And I would say the same people, the same influence, the same people that started it in the Orion, Lyra, whatever,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But my point being that we were headed kind of like where we are now,
Yeah.
which to me, and I feel like that we probably, even though we may not have some of the bells and whistles here, or at least they're not publicly shared or disclosed, that we're we're in a better place to come into that higher universal alignment, or whatever this experiment might potentially be, in terms of uh, going from carbon-based to physical, not having physical death anymore, something like that. I
Yeah.
feel like that, but as ugly as some of the stuff could look out there, there's something happening with individuals. I think that's that 100th monkey kind of thing that you were talking
Yeah.
about. And I think you ask a very good question, and I would ask you of it. How many of there is us? How many of us is there? However you say that. Would you
Oh,
say that
well,
are
that 144 number comes up a lot. I mean, as far as consciousness goes, it is all frequency. That's the other thing. So as we vibrate collectively, which, I talk about choice points was coming up when you were talking, because individually we have choice points of what we're willing to entertain,
Mhm.
right? Like you said, NASA, we're willing to entertain that. Does that resonate with our body? Are we getting, as we're more attuned, which for me is the brain body mapping, you're more in alignment with those higher level frequencies, and then you're operating on those. So are we in tune? Are we in alignment with this information? And a lot of us know the truth. So it's the collective choice point. And that's why, what choice does a collective have? So, for me, the 144, to activate and get that group fully functional, because a lot of people are still operating in the 3D system, even though they don't want to. that it's moving people in that way that we're able to collectively support one another. I think for me, once we're there, that's there's no stopping us. But a lot of us are still separate.
Yeah.
We're not all together. There's still a lot of survival codes running, which I feel that's ancestral, and a lot of that, we've been moving out of because we're now operating on a different framework, on a different frequency. And so it for me feels like we're there, we're at that momentum. We've gained that momentum. So I'm seeing a lot of gatherings next year just to come together, no agenda, just to gather on the land. I've already seen it, 2024.
Yeah.
Just physically, because in the cymatic, the sacred geometry that we create as a group, that goes out into, into the field.
December 8th, 9th, and 10. Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
third
exciting.
Solstice. Yeah, so I guess we're going to be, we'll be the preseason. But the funny thing is, I totally resonate with what you're saying, because again, that automatic pilot thing seems to be on.
Yeah.
As I was, coming to terms with this, I was like August, September, and I just got a loud, no, it's going to be here, and this is how it's going to go down.
Yeah, December. That's important.
So I think that speaks to it, and I like what you're saying too, because first of all, it's not often that you hear somebody. Sandra spoke to this at the beginning of the show. You're speaking to it now. It's not often enough. Let's say let's speak positively. It's becoming more frequent because of people like you and her, and that can speak of this fragmentation phase that we're in. Let's say the first phase was like a child, like an immature, like a toddler or infant, and then you have this fragmentation, and then you start to have some cohesiveness. And I like what you're saying, because what you're saying is that it's the physical effort. You could say walk the talk. You could say practice what you preach, embodiment, whatever. But it's the physical alignment, to the reality of our oneness, but being put into motion and not sitting back like hermits anymore.
Yeah.
That actually the energetics of that far outweigh anything in the energetic field that we can't see, and certainly anything in the literal physical linear reality. So I think that's a really good point. And the way that you can say that, as opposed to what we're seeing a lot of, which is, and I don't spend much time on social media, anymore, but you don't have to, because you see, hey, this box over here is the way to go. And, groups and herd mentality, and I could pick many different examples, are, false light. There's that whole thing, the ego has to speak. The soul doesn't have to say a goddamn thing, right? The soul takes action, unified action, and it's a recognizable universal frequency, especially with all the work we've done here on Earth, because we're universally seated. That's why I feel like that we have Atlantis. Yes, we do. That's vital information, but so is Lemuria, so is Elysium, so is Lyra, so is Andromeda, so is Pleiades. Pleiades came in the middle of last month like gangbusters.
Oh yeah.
Like that was
that
wild.
Was the gate, the Pleiadian gateway. That was in alignment with the Pleiades. So all that coding, right? It's almost like a computer.
I didn't even realize it. And then Julie Dara Roberts, she's the Solstice cosmologist. She came on talking about Pleiades, the Pleiades gateway or procession, and then I've had this thing with Aldebaran for years. And
me too.
And then at the end of the month, it's Aldebaran, the Sun, and Pleiades.
They're all aligned.
I'm like, man, this shit. And it happened on the day that I had my wake up experience, and Jesus or Cosmic Christ came in the trees.
Wow.
To the day 12 years later.
Of course.
So all of this stuff, and you're going, okay.
That's a timeline.
right. But yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you can speak to that. You can say, hey, you know what? I'm not throwing rocks at anybody, but people, we're not coming together. And that means you, and me. And why don't we have a little function coming together and let's see what happens, which is essentially the spirit of what we're going to do in December, because
yeah, beautiful.
we're not going to have, we did this last year, but we had other things we had to attend to last year.
Yeah, I
at
remember.
an energetic basis. But and that is that everyone that, and this is, think of this, not literally, but in all ways, everyone that comes is a presenter or a performer.
Right.
Right. There is no headliner.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Whoever.
And to me, that's what you're talking about is let's come together. Why? So we can listen to so-and-so play music, or we can listen to so-and-so speak. No, why don't we come together and see what happens?
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly. Because that's the cymatic, right? Cymatic is a frequency, a pattern generated from the collective, from the group itself. So that's what's important. And, we're creating it with everything that we've all been doing for many years. But the physical gathering, and there's been groups, so I'm not saying there hasn't, but with a specific frequency, right? Especially, and I've seen it. I can see when people go, they have to go around again. I said it last week. If you're still judging, or you're going to judge somebody outside of you, or you're the problem, right? Then you might have to run some polarity stuff again. You might have to go around again, which just means you have to look at, where am I not owning my shit, right? Where am I projecting outward?
Right.
There's so much stuff that comes through social media. And, for me, I think we already know what the problem is.
Right.
We know what those are. What is the solution? We're here to create this new earth. I mean, that's it.
Exactly. It makes me laugh because it makes me laugh because and I'm sure there's things that people can see in me that I can't see in myself. I mean, it goes. So again, we're speaking out of people personally. We're speaking of a dynamic that that will not stick. And so when we go on to a Starseed Lightworker news feed, I would say that our news feeds, because I mean, mine's tailored, man. So anything's coming up, it's got to be, these people are connected to these types of streams. And you see people taking a adamant stance politically.
Right.
I'm going, especially when they start to associate personalities like a Biden or a Trump or whoever it may be. And you go, wait a minute, man, we're here to bring this together. We know this. We know this is a warped polarity game. And I'm convinced. You mentioned Pleiadian earlier. You mentioned your connection, or I would say one of them. There's probably more than one Pleiadian connection.
Yes, there is.
But I feel like a lot of these feminine personalities that are stepping up, which is again what I see as being what I'm associated with here at Solstice, supporting these ambassadors. I mean, and what I was going to say is, I believe a lot of them are Pleiadian.
Ambassadors.
I believe a lot of them are Pleiadian. I believe there's a lot of Pleiadians that have embodied here, and it's, I don't know. I saw it last month, and I was like, holy crap! Like just wave after wave of coding.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of Pleiades. I would say Pleiadian and also Syrian. Those are the two main groups.
Yeah.
Embodied, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my text. I don't know how to turn that off.
Don't worry about it. Hey, that's an affirmation. That's a confirmation.
I know, I'm getting
and see, Sirius is like, for me, Sirius is I know it's from before Sirius, but I can start in Sirius. That was the very first thing that showed itself to me.
Right.
And, as a star, or as a a home, or whatever you want to call it, family, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the the collaboration and lineage of like for me, the Sirius Orion, Sirius Orion, Andromeda, Sirius Orion, Lyra, Aldebaran, Pleiades.
Yeah.
I mean, all that whole quadrant, and of course, Earth. I mean,
yeah, we're important. I mean, we're a very important planet. Extremely important. I mean, I think most people know this who do this work, and so our ascension, our joining kind of the rest of the galactic family is extremely important, and that has been the mission. But to be able to transcend and to heal what has happened here is extremely, that has been focus. And it's the layers and levels on the human framework, just because of what we've spoken about, the oppression and the lack of disclosure, which is really what you're saying, and that's what's all coming out.
Yeah.
Because the frequency determines what the information is.
Exactly.
So as we've risen in frequency, you can't hide anything. There's no hiding.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why everything is coming out.
It's brilliant.
Because
look, there you go again.
I know how to turn it off.
That's a brilliant explanation, because it's been so physical. We haven't looked at ourselves as light. And if you really think about what she's saying, what's happening is the light is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And even though we're in the physical, and all the qualities and properties that has, one of those is that everything will be divulged. Now, I want to ask you, we've all done a lot of shadow work in zero pointing. And I don't believe that we would be engaging this conversation in this field, swimming in this field of consciousness, of expansion with our brothers and sisters, unless we had. But as within, without, my question goes to what's coming in terms of disclosure. And I'm talking less about the present and more about the past, because it's really all the same damn thing. But my question is, do you feel like that, and this isn't a leading question, I really don't know the answer, but do you feel like that one of the, how do you say this? Do you feel like that possibly from here forward anyway, the biggest trigger activation, transformation, is going to come from our shared lineage, from the shared story of the human evolution? When I say human evolution, I'm going back to Galactic, Galaxy. I'm going from Lyran, all the related, that bring us here, that make this body that we have, and so on. Do you feel like that's something that we'll all face together?
That's a good question. I mean, I do feel like the rest of the planet is going to go through a big awakening. How that actually transpires, I don't know. I feel like there'll be groups of us that, might receive that information, that are able to handle it, so to speak. I mean, what I've noticed, and also what's come through, is you're only going to see and be able to experience what you're ready to see. So whether or not there's a big shock and awe campaign, I don't know, because it's also what's going to not keep the peace, but in a way, what's going to keep things from fully going into, down in the, down in that.
Well, I mean, and here's another one for you.
I'm not sure. It's day to day.
Well, I agree with you. Well, I agree with you. I think, like, that's what I said, like,
the ships are there.
Everything's there.
Everything's here.
Like, okay, so if you look at the forgive me, the Kyaluga, or the 26,000 cycle, the 2600s, but ultimately in the big cycle, there's this 26,000 procession that you can end up. Is it I guess it's feasible, it's possible that there is what the human might look at as a catastrophic series of events we might call natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, that is a totally different experience, maybe from our multidimensional level, and that is kind of, I don't know, what I'm trying to say is that how much of it is preordained, and
Yeah.
are we in a spot where we can alter those, let's just say from the human perspective, natural disasters, the floods and this and that, because we do elevate?
I mean, I would say yes and no, because also, the trajectory, I mean, the planets go through shifts.
Right.
It's just, and so we've had those cataclysms before. And I have received it in probably in 2012, I remember hearing, you'll know when it's time to leave California because of, potentials of what's going to happen. And we
Okay.
are shifting, and this is the pole shift. So, a lot of us have received that intel about what we're doing physically is adjusting, some of these energetic frameworks, I guess, but on a physical level, making changes in how things are moving. I remember working on the water, a lot of the inner earth water, and some people talk about that, where all of our water comes from the inner earth.
Right.
And so we have this relationship, again, which is beyond what most people are told, which is why the feeling and the gnosis has been so important. But the earth itself is going through changes. But yes, we do affect the planets. We do affect, and that's another thing. We do have an effect. It's a symbiotic relationship. We are
Right.
not separate from anything that's happening.
Right.
I've had some people say, oh, the ships, the galactic ships are going to pull everybody out, right? If there's some cataclysm. So, which has happened before. And we do affect those timelines. So yes, I feel like collectively we're able to, thwart some of those cataclysms, but those have been brought on by human, right? By misuse of power.
Right.
And I think that's a huge part of it. And I'll say, because this has also come through my field, is, World War II, that Hiroshima was a very important point in this Earth's timeline. And there was a lot of SOS that went out to our cosmic family because we were about to destroy ourselves once again. So that has been a timeline that I've worked on. Many of us have worked on. So you could say, in essence, there was a hold on our timeline, right? So if you think about what we see as a potential,
Yeah.
these are potentials, and the potential of cataclysm was very high at that point.
Yeah.
I feel like we've moved off that timeline, to be honest.
Yeah.
And this golden age, that energetic, is very much here. And it is a choice individually.
Right.
What you're going to work, right? Individually, what you're going to entertain in your field. And then that does affect the collective. So I think, and I can feel, and people are posting, and I was just in New Mexico and it was a full galactic meeting. I posted one of the ship. I mean, it's obvious it's a ship. It was a mothership. I
Right.
could see it as I'm driving to the land. I'm like, oh, the meeting's going to start. So
where was this? New Mexico?
New Mexico. Yeah, I was there on my birthday.
Happy
I've
birthday.
done,
When
thank
was this?
you, May 16th.
Oh,
That was
okay.
last month. And I was told, get there on your birthday, and driving. And my client has 20 acres, Kimberly, which is amazing. And I've worked on that land for many years. So I already know it is like an asceti because it's a gateway. And so they all just show up, and we had meetings for 3 days.
What part of New Mexico was that?
She is like 30 minutes outside of Santa Fe.
Is she got like really white hair? Older lady?
No, but she has blonde hair, but no, it's not who you're thinking of. She hasn't been super public, but I am going to start doing some gatherings on the land. A lot of these preparations, I've said this, we've been laying the foundation, at least I have, since 2012, the foundation for not only the gatherings, which you've been also laying the foundation, prepping the land, right? Healing the land, working with the ancestral pieces, the inner earth pieces, that's also a lot of the work that I've done, is work on peace agreements between the realms, being pulled into a lot of those, because Earth itself, the surface of Earth, has had so many broken agreements with the other species. This is an important piece, because also, there's a trust level that has not been here, that has not existed because of what's happened and the betrayals. I mean,
well,
you
I
could
mean,
talk
it
about
only
the
makes
betrayals.
sense. It only makes sense. If lies are being disseminating or just being disseminated from the top down, then you could look at, and I think we have to question history. When you think about the example of the two bombs, I mean, who was the bad guy here? And we know history's been whitewashed. We've watched them try to do it even in the social media age. But going back to your point, if we're in a realm or a perceived realm, like say a dome within the actual dome, so to speak, metaphorically, and if you look at, say, like, the story or the narrative of say Nazi Germany, well, they were being propagandized from the top down. They were being lied to from the top down. They were being asked to enter certain spaces of consent that had to trickle down. So what would happen? That would mean that bosses would lie to employees. That would mean that wives would lie to husbands, and husbands would lie to wives, and they would lie to kids, and the school would lie. You know what I mean? So the whole thing. So I can see that. I'm glad you brought that up, because again, so much of this journey is becoming obvious, really all of it, that it's self-responsibility. So if we're living in a conglomerate that has not been responsible, that means that's on us. I mean, all you have to do is look at this past week. You had Vladimir Putin go down to South Africa and produce a document at a press conference that had not been produced in the 2 years that had been written, which was an agreement of neutrality and peace, signed and initialed by the lead representative of a contingent from Kyiv in Russia 2 years ago. So they basically agreed to stop the war. That was rescinded. Also, other war peace agreements, or other peace agreements ascended. But again, this is a culture that actually is global wide. This is the human being incarnated wide. So I'm assuming that we're to keep doing what we're doing. I'm asking you a question. That we keep doing what we're doing, keep working on ourselves, keep raising our discernment, acting, walking the talk, embodying, and that our energetic force will turn the tide, as opposed to them coming in to save us, or that there are all these white hats in the governments that are with Q and they're going to do it for us. I mean, it's really us, isn't it? It's really up to us. It's really in the way that we engage with each other that sets the tone. It's almost like it got fucked up from the bottom, the top down, and we fix it from the bottom up. Something like that.
Well, exactly. Those are great points. And, it's making me, it's reminding me when I was looking, because, a lot of, on this country, and this is Turtle Island that we, many of us live on, the agreements, if you look at the agreements that the government made with the tribes, the Native American tribes, right? They basically rescinded on every one of them, all of them, except for one. There's only one tribe, because they were warriors and they were afraid of them. But if you look at, and I've read this, every single tribe, I probably, I'll have to go look. But so, that is a prime example, right? Saying one thing and then doing something else. And how much of that, like you said, perpetuates still. Let's create this beautiful agreement, but I'm not going to honor it. And this is also important. And, even if you look in the personal relationships, there are a lot of memes about that. It's not what you say, it's what you do.
Yes.
Because the words have no meaning if there's nothing backing it up.
It's true. And here we go with the magnifying glass on ourselves, because it's duplicitous in these examples you're talking about. We talk about breaking oaths and promises, and then we got to free ourselves. But you know what? We consciously make them. We make them or break them. And the thing is, we can break this down to our every thought.
Yeah.
We can break this down to holding ourselves accountable when we're passing judgment. I don't care. I saw a post today somebody sent me from somebody who did some fucked up things. And I look at it and I stared into their eyes because they were on a video, and I stared into their eyes.
Yeah.
Until I didn't have to. It's not
Right.
fucking real, but it is real. That's what I love about your message. It's not real. Don't fly off the reservation, but it is real based on your present eternal moment, actions, thoughts, and words.
Right.
And are you carrying the duplicitous nature of what's been here? And evidence being, I'm a light worker, I'm a starseed, but she's a bitch, and he's
right.
false light,
yeah. I mean,
right?
we all exactly this false light. I just find people throw around names and things.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that even mean?
Right.
I mean, and again, it's like you said, it's the reflection, right?
Yeah.
So taking that responsibility, I mean, I'm not native in this body, but of course I have that soul.
Same here.
And I have that connection, and I've done a lot of grid work and land work to unravel and heal, but the lack of trust with there's it's such a delicate balance.
Yeah.
I mean, and being able to negotiate and work on agreements. Like I say, when most of my work has been, in the unseen, it's between the realms. It's, all of these agreements that were made, because we're not just dealing with the earth, the surface.
Right.
It's like galactic agreements, you got inner earth agreements, you got agreements with all the animals. I mean, the animal kingdom is a very intelligent group. This is a whole piece that many of us know, but is not honored. They are not honored the way that we used to honor them.
Yeah.
Right.
Even
and so that's
even in even in the cycle of life, like with the Indians and the buffalo, using you utilize
that's a
praying
great
over
example.
it. Yeah, I mean,
right. It's like
the perspective of the soul is one thing that has never been without representation in this world. Not 1 second, not if you were enslaved, not with you, no matter what predicament or circumstance or consequence you were in any of these lifetimes, we came to experience. I saw this thing yesterday, and it was a nurse, and it was about 20 seconds long. It wasn't. It was. And she just gets on and goes, because you couldn't hear the first part. She goes, his mouth started moving, and he started saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know. I would never have wanted to leave if I'd known." And what was happening, she starts crying. What was happening was the man, left and came back in his body enough to share what he was seeing.
Yes.
And what he was knowing, I guess, what he was knowing. And it wasn't about where he was going, oh, everything's fine, there's a big white light and all my family's here. It was about, oh my God, I don't want to leave this extra high sensory experience of the human being. Right.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I went, especially now.
Especially now.
After all this time. So bring on whatever you want to bring on. Because I'm anxious to see what we're made of. And I'm talking about, like, you got these reports of tanks going through the American streets and they're mobilizing for something. Well, so what? Bring it the fuck on. We're not.
Let's get this going.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. We're eternal.
Most of it's probably not even real, but I mean, but my point is, like, where are we? Who? That's why I said about the end of the 26,000 year cycle. Yeah. Is this a situation where things continue to be refined? Because we know we always evolve, we always refine we follow the pattern that we are the universe. Is it a situation where you have, like, let's say the last time, where you have people like you pulling the information, this is coming, this group go to Tibet into the under the earth, this group goes to Antarctica, this group goes here, this group goes there, the wash is made, the technology comes back, and we build back up again, and this is what we do, and there is no death, and right? And we keep or what is this? I don't know, but but it's possible that we could be, I'm convinced that we are creating a new branch, you could say a new branch of the Akashic, our new
Right.
universal coding through our living library that we saw as being, oh my God, this is horrible. But we now realize the shadow is the gold, man. The shadow is not the shadow we thought. It's
right. And that's a great point, because the Akashic is, and that's also part of what I was doing is, because the Akashic is the old database holding all the information that we've been running, right? Because it's a memory field. But by releasing that, we're able to now bring in, well, I'll call the future memory field.
right.
So that's a lot of what, to go into our archives and to clear and heal and update, whatever you want to call it, that old data that again, people are just running programs, right? All the war and everything. So they're just programs. And if you look at, they're running based on their awareness and their understanding. And then they have an aha moment. They, do some plant medicine or whatever, right? Die and come back. You see how infinite we actually are. And that opens up that field. And that's why, of course, the awakening and the different layers of different groups that have awakened, and kids are coming in and they'll be born soon, they'll have no recollection of the trauma, that most of people are born into. So it's that enduring memory field, aka the Akashic, which we really have been moving out of to, like you said, it's that living library. It's the palpability of, who we are beyond this physical body. So this has been the place of remembrance, but also the place of learning. And we're moving out of that. We're moving into a completely new 26,000 year cycle. But there was a lot of work that had to be done, which is why a lot of us are here and showed up and went, oh shit, what's happening?
So
oh shit, what's this?
Oh, we got another show in 20 minutes. We got three shows. We got 3 shows today. We haven't had 3 shows in a long time. We haven't had 3 shows in a long time, but today's a special day.
I love it. Yeah, beautiful. I'm so happy we made it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way things just, because I'm not scheduling like months, weeks out in advance anymore.
It's great. It was perfect.
It won't allow us to, but I wanted to say, I don't know if you want to take us out with, with a blessing or an activation or whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
because I just want to say again, thank you very much for what you do, because you are one of those consistent people that people can kind of utilize as a baseline to kind of, I'm getting this, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's what the galactic part. Thank you so much. I appreciate those words. Let me see. I mean, I feel like we've covered so much, and everybody's at that baseline. I'm feeling like we're at a completely new space, and just, it's an ongoing trust. Of everything I've done, everybody I've worked with, as long as you can trust what you're receiving, it doesn't matter what's happening outside of you. This is an important point, is to really hold that space within you. And, like you said, we're just going to know, I'm just going to show up, and everyone's going to be there. We're in that place because just like the animals, we're resonating on the same frequency. And that's the cymatic I talk about. So the words, we don't need to use the words anymore. We're moving out of even social media, because we're just going to know, and we're going to feel where we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be with. So it is a new level of flow. And I think that's, we're there. And regardless of what you're seeing on the news or what have you, it is holding that frequency. That's so important. So
that's right.
So I want to say in the closing, but
all right, man.
But reach out with any questions. Of course, I'm on
and
Facebook.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, Facebook's great. I'm pretty active through social media still. Yeah. And there's some things coming down the pike, things that I'm feeling to also moving into some content and having,
cool.
working with you. I mean, I'd love to
Well,
just
keep us
create
in mind
some.
if
Yeah,
you'd
I
like
will.
to, if you'd like
I
to,
will.
you know, and
Yeah.
anyone else out there, if you'd like to,
Yeah, I
you know,
would.
look at originating a show.
Yeah, I'd love
You
to do
know,
that.
it's just a co-op, and there's a lot more to it. I mean, we have a lot, working a lot of the tech out, a lot of the resources that long term we'll be able to offer to people. But yeah, it's I'll talk more about it. But yeah,
Okay,
bottom line is
exciting.
we're looking for people that would like to originate an expression, you know, 90 minutes, give or take a half hour, once a week,
Yeah,
show up and play with it and collaborate and see what comes up with it, you know?
that'd be great. I'd love to.
All right, perfect. I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Thank you so much,
Okay, thanks
Valerie. Take
everybody. Thank
care,
you so much,
everybody.
Todd.
All
Happy
right.
Sol